Welcome to the brand new direct order entry system for full access cabinet components. As beta testers, please share your issues and struggles as well as your discoveries of what we overlooked or just plain missed. Also, please share any ideas you have on how to improve the full access catalogs and the CabAccess interface. Totally made that name up this morning as a placeholder for the future name. Please share your name ideas with us as well. This will not be a short video tutorial, so I intend to add chapter markers and we'll make those chapters navigable in the description of the video on YouTube so you can skip around to the parts that you're interested in or need to review later. Because this will not be a short video, you can expect me to be speaking at about 120 words per minute with gusts up to about 200 words per minute, so buckle up, Buttercup. So the disclaimer, the views expressed in this video tutorial are my own and do not necessarily represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which I have been, am now, or will be affiliated with, including but not limited to CabAccess. If something I say offends you, do not blame CabAccess, my wife, my church, my parents, my children, my grandchildren, my cousins, my Facebook friends, my Twitter followers, the Republicans, the Democrats, or Indigo Matoya. Well, you can blame Indigo if you want, but you might get stabbed. If you're bent on blame, and you must blame someone, blame me and me alone. So who should use this new system? Our target audience is custom cabinet manufacturers who are looking for ways to enhance their profitability, to make more money now and in the future, and see strategic outsourcing as one of several ways to achieve that objective. In the past, if you wanted to order full access cabinet components from CabAccess, you really needed to own or rent KCD's design software, which includes the three CabAccess libraries: Frame, Full Overlay Frame, and Full Access. If you were looking to purchase face frame cabinet components, you could also use the CabAccess web store, but there was no full access option on the web store, so this is that missing component. We also would run into cabinet makers who already owned their design software and did not want to invest in a second design software program, or learn how to use it for that matter, but wanted to order full access cabinet components. This is CabAccess's answer to that dilemma. Then there are the trim carpenters and do-it-yourself warriors who simply can't justify owning design software for their one-time or infrequent projects and just need a few cabinets for a bookcase, garage, closet, bath, and in some cases an entire kitchen. I believe you will find this direct order entry system extraordinary. So what is this direct order entry system I'm telling you about? Well, let's not get the cart before the horse. This is not, I repeat, it is not a cabinet design system. You will not be drawing walls, rooms, or any facsimile of such things. This is a direct order entry system, one cabinet at a time. Cabinets you add one by one that have absolutely no relationship to each other. They are not even distant cousins. This is a direct order entry system to order full access cabinet components. This spanking new CabAccess full access catalog is the True 32 system repurposed, based on a collaboration of hundreds of custom cabinet manufacturers all over North America over a 23-year time span. CabAccess full access cabinet components are not just face frame cabinets without the frame. They are full access cabinets based on the more than a century-old European foundation of a systematic approach to cabinet making, also known as the 32mm system. This system has stood the test of time. Many today would say that in a parametric world, the 32mm system is no longer needed, and in many respects that is true. But there is still value in a systematic approach to cabinet making, especially in a world of tight and tightening labor markets. A system removes opportunities for mistake from the process and sets the next person up for success, even if that next person happens to be you. One attribute of the 32mm system that still holds great value is incremental cabinet, door, and drawer front sizing. If every size door and or drawer front can be correct, then there are no red flags when they are incorrect. No feedback loop that lets the designer and or engineer know disaster is just ahead. In a 32mm increment system, only cabinet heights that are in increments of 32mm are in system, and doors and drawer fronts that are also divisible by 32 if you add back the respective reveals. These increments make it really easy to memorize incremental heights, i.e. 157, 189, 221, 253, 285, 317, 349, 605, 765, 393, 1021, etc., etc., etc. So if a door or drawer front is wrong, there's your red flag. This removes the opportunity for mistake from the process. Any cabinet door or drawer front that is not the right size has the potential of making a profitable project unprofitable. So the objective of removing the opportunity for mistake and setting the next person up for success is still a worthy and valuable objective. But the CabAccess full access catalog is parametric, so all your hinges and drawer guides will still work perfectly even if you go out of system on the cabinet height and or doors and drawer front heights. Make your cabinets any height between our minimum and maximum, and everything will still work correctly. I'm not saying you can't screw yourself, because you can. The math still has to work. It still has to add up. So be careful, look at the cabinet before you go to the next one, but utilizing cabinet heights that are out of system will not break your parametric hinge and drawer guide positions. As a systematic approach to cabinet making, all of the systems should be utilized to take advantage of all the benefits, even if you choose not to stay in system. This includes using leg levelers and the suspension system, so every cabinet can be installed dead level and plumb every time. With the recommended 3mm reveals, full access cabinets simply cannot be out of level or plumb or racked out of square by running screws through the back into an unplumbed wall that is also not flat and sitting on unlevel floors. Tight reveals are unforgiving. Doing so may save your installers a few minutes on the front end, only to make them crazy on the back end attempting to adjust doors and drawer fronts, which becomes 10 times more difficult and time consuming, and at times impossible when the cabinets are not level, plumb, and square. So, in the words of Inigo Montoya, let's begin. Let's start with the menu structure. So we're looking here at our menu structure within the CabAccess.us website, and we have a new option called Full Access Cabinets. If for some reason you don't see that, go ahead and click on Home, and then this Full Access button should show up. By clicking on this button, it will take you to the project page where you can create a new project or select an existing project. Currently, you cannot delete a project from this list, but that capability is coming. So here is the list I'm referring to, these previous projects, and currently, as you see, there's no methodology for deleting them, but we will be adding that shortly. So on this project selection page, let's create a new project named Burns Kitchen. Now this is a real kitchen that we did a few years back, and it's the project that the current assembly and installation videos were based on. I think it's always wise to use a suffix as a version number with at least 2 digits to keep track of multiple versions, especially if you're going to look at several price variations. So we will name this Burns Kitchen REV-001. Then we click the Create Project button. Here we choose between imperial and metric. What dimension system do you want to use to enter your cabinet sizes? If you know me, you've already guessed it, I'm going to choose the metric system because it's simply more efficient for numerical entry and removes lots of opportunities for mistakes, and this makes perfect sense if you want to stay in system. Obviously, you can choose the imperial catalog if you want. Alright, this is where we choose our option presets. This is where you can save a ton of time. By answering these questions now, you will save yourself from having to answer them over and over again with each cabinet you add. More of the options that we'll run across as we add cabinets will become part of these presets as we get further along in the development process. So not every option that we currently have in the dialog box for each cabinet is here now, but we will add more in the future. So let's look at the options here. Right here in the very top space, this custom presets, we see that it says new preset. And we have several options here. So new preset is the first option, but we could also choose the CabAccess metric default. If we choose that, you see it fills in most of these. Now currently it's missing these 2, no big deal. Those will be fixed shortly, and they'll fill into what we think is the default that should be there. But currently you need to answer those to move forward. This one doesn't matter, and it is out of position right now as well. This whole sort order will probably change in time, but we have this bottom rail height, and then we have the bottom rail selection. Those 2 should be together. So if this is set to no, it doesn't matter that this is empty. We don't have a bottom rail, so we don't need to set a bottom rail height. The default will be 32 millimeters, and if you say no, it's 0 at that point. So it really doesn't matter if there's anything there, but if you do want to use it, you would type something in here, and we'll talk about the negative reveal and a hidden light rail in a future portion or a later portion of this video. So let's just kind of talk through these real quick. Right now we're in the CabAccess metric defaults. Later, to save you time, we'll allow you to load these and then just change this name, like I could put in here Bobo's metric defaults or True 32 custom cabinetry's metric defaults, or whatever you wanted to type in here. And then when you save them, they'll be saved. Currently, if you choose this new preset, then you can actually answer all these questions and save them, and when you come back, they will be here for you to choose from. But right now, we're just going to take these since it fills it in for us, and it'll save us just a few seconds here. These are the defaults that we think most commonly will be used, or we think you should use. So we've got a UV maple interior. We're going to leave this blank because on every cabinet we don't want this, and we can add it per cabinet, so we don't want to necessarily have it filled out here. If you did know you wanted it on all your upper cabinets, you could go ahead and answer it here, and it would this and come down here and answer this yes. Construction method. Let's just kind of pop through here and look at them. We've got no connector, no pilot holes. So that would be no machining for connectors in any way if you wanted to staple your cabinet together. I don't recommend this one because there's no pilot holes. This next one would be ideal if you wanted to just staple your cabinet together. So no connector, but 3mm pilot holes. And then no connector, 5mm pilot holes would be for the people that like to staple their cabinets together or nail their cabinets together, and then they want to use a conformat screw. Now the 5mm pilot hole won't solve the conformat screw issue, but it'll give you a pilot to chase with conformat stepped bit, and then you could run a conformat through there. So you would put your cabinet together and then take the conformat bit and chase it through this 5mm pilot hole, and then you would take your conformat and run it. And then the Lamello Tenso with no pilot holes. So if you wanted to have integral finished ends, now we're not offering that in this, and we'll talk about that later, in the sense that you could have a cherry exterior and a UV interior. We're not offering that. We intend for you to use applied ends. But if you're doing a closet or a garage or something like that, and you're using a white melamine interior or a UV two-sided interior, then the exterior would have UV on the outside or white melamine. So if you said no pilot holes in Tensos, you're going to have to glue it in some way to hold it, but you could do that. So that would be technically for those interior materials serving as your exterior, you could do that. And then you have your Lamello Tenso 3mm pilot hole. That's what is pre-chosen for you because that's the one we think is the most common, and it's a really practical way of doing it. If you again wanted to use conformats, you could use this Lamello 5mm pilot hole. Then we have added new dowel construction methods. So you could use 8mm dowels with no pilot holes if you're going to glue it together, and then technically you could have those integral finished ends for whatever your interior materials are. And then an 8mm dowel with 3mm pilot holes, and then an 8mm dowel with 5mm pilot holes. And so for commercial projects, these three new options are ideal. And then we have our front carcass edge band material. Now it defaults to pre-finished maple, and that is very seldom what anybody will use unless it happen to be a closet or garage type cabinetry. So you really need to pick something, and that's why you want to create your own sets. But let's just say for the case of this job that we're going to use let's say for this job we're going to use Dove Gray. And then the shelf edge banding, your options are match front, match interior, or no edge banding at all. So if you want to band them yourselves, choose no edge banding. If you want to match the interior, so if you have a white interior, that means you would have white edge banding on the front of that shelf. And if you say match front, then in this case we would have Dove Gray. Whatever you've chosen here, if you say match front. In my opinion, with full access cabinets, match front makes the most sense. In a face frame cabinet, the adjustable shelves are back from the doors at least the thickness of the frame, in typically another 1/4 inch or so for clearance. So they're back far enough that shelf is just not right up behind a pair of doors. But in the case of full access cabinets, the shelf is usually within the 1/4 inch. And so if you had a white shelf with a white front edge band and a cherry exterior, it's going to look like race stripes wherever your pair of doors come together. So I recommend using the match front, but you can use whatever you want. In the face frame cabinage library, the default would be to match the interior because the shelves are further away from the doors and they don't show like that. And then for your drawer box selection, your options are, so do we want a dovetail undermount drawer guide, or do we want no drawer box? We don't want to buy a drawer box. In this case, we're saying we want a dovetail drawer and an undermount drawer guide. Here we're saying I don't want a drawer box, but I still want you to machine for that undermount slide. And the undermount slide machining works for almost all the brands. We're machining for Bloom, but all the others have kind of matched up to Bloom, so that works. At least 1 or 2 holes will work, and then you might have to add a wood screw or so for some of the odd out of system, maybe imported drawer guides. And then no drawer box and no machining. If you wanted to do it yourself, if we aren't offering what you need and you've got a job and you want to do the drawers yourself, then you would just say no drawer box, no machining for drawer guide. And then you choose the material for your drawer box. And it doesn't matter that there's something here. If you've said no drawer box, then whatever's here just doesn't matter. You could even choose nothing if you wanted to. It won't hurt anything. But the two are the 5/8 finger jointed birch and the 5/8 maple. 5/8 maple is the more expensive of the two. For our default, we're making it the finger joint. Integral parts material is anything like a blind panel, something that becomes part of the cabinet but needs to be finished by you in your plant. So that would include the blind panel, the rail we talked about earlier, like you have a recessed bottom and we have a rail in the front, maybe the rails on a tall appliance cabinet, the sink front apron, and we'll see those later in this video tutorial. Anything that needs to be a part that's made from something that'll come to you raw, like in this case raw maple, but your options are all of the materials. If for some reason it needs to be white melamine, it can be. It can be any of the colors we offer, any of the materials we offer will be here, and all of the raw materials, but even the UV materials here, if that's going to work for you in that particular application. Typically a UV natural birch or a UV maple blind panel won't work out for you if you're doing a cherry job. You're going to want to use the raw cherry. In this case, because this is going to be a painted job supposedly, we've chosen that designer white, or no, we chose Dove Gray. So let's just go ahead and say that I'm going to use the raw maple because we're going to finish it to match this, and we're going to paint it, let's say. Then for your adjustable shelf holes, we've got several options here: cluster of 5, full line bore, and none. So if you don't want any line bore, you can have that. You can have the full line bore, and even here you can choose full line bore for all the cabinets if that's typically what you want, and then you could set 1 or 2 or 10, however many you wanted, to the cluster. Per cabinet could be different, but the default will be whatever you set here. Or you could set your default to cluster 5 and then change 1 or 2 cabinets to full line bore if you needed to. We do intend, in addition to these 3 options, to add a couple more, probably a cluster of 3 and a cluster of 7, something like that. Maybe even a cluster of 1. For glass door cabinets, sometimes that's effective. The disadvantage of that is we can't really give you the ability to move that shelf anywhere you want. It's kind of got to be the centered thing, so a cluster of 1 may not be ideal, but we will add additional options here in the future. And then our toe selection. The default is what I think you should use, Kmart legs, and machine for those legs, or we'll probably add other brands here. The reason we specifically said, we didn't say what model, but we said Kmart here. We will probably add some additional legs. The one we're thinking of right now would be the Hayflow leg that has the little tool that you can actually stick it back in there with your cordless drill and actually adjust the leg using their tool rather than having to reach back and turn it. But your options here are no legs, no machining for legs. So you could just get the cabinet with nothing at the bottom at all. You can get no legs, but we will machine for the Kmart legs. In other words, you want to have the machining, but you're going to buy your legs, or you're stocking them, or you're buying in large quantities. You don't want to order them with this job, something like that. And then Kmart legs. So in this case, Kmart legs, machine for legs, we're actually going to send you the legs. We're going to put them in the cart for you and say, here's the legs you need for the cabinets that you've ordered. And so we're going to machine for the legs, and we're going to count the legs for you. You can still delete them out of the cart if you don't want them, but we're going to put them in there for you. And then integral toe with toe notch. Obviously, as a True 32 guy, I'm going to say don't use this, but we have to provide this option for some people. Some people just insist on having the integral toe. They think it's fast, and it is fast if you just shim everything, but whatever time you save there will probably come back to bite you in the time that it takes to adjust doors and drawers if your cabinets aren't dead level, dead plumb every time. Then our toe kick height. You can set your toe kick height here so that every cabinet, as you drop it, will have that toe kick height. So in the Imperial Library, this is set to 4-inch. 110 millimeters is not 4-inch, but this is getting that side panel to 768 millimeters, which is a divisible of 32, and as close to 34.5. It's the metric equivalent, as close as we can get. And then the toe kick depth, how far back the toe kick is, we're going to copy this into each cabinet, but you can adjust it if you want it to be 0 for an island cabinet or something like that, where you don't want the toe kick recessed, you want it out flush. Or you could make it deeper. We have anywhere from 0 to 6 inches or 152 millimeters. You can set that. Then your hinge placement. Where do your hinges go? So your options here are none. If you say none, we won't machine for the hinge plate. If you say 3-inch, we'll machine for the hinge plate where it'll be 3 inches equal distance on the door. The reason we do this is because you can buy your doors pre-bored for hinges from a lot of door companies. So we want to give you the options that are most frequent from those door companies. This is not what I would use, but it is a pretty common dimension that door companies offer. This is what I would use. This is an in system. 94.5 millimeters would be in system. So I would use the 3 3/4. Another reason to use 3 3/4 or 4 is if you're going to do that negative reveal on the wall cabinets and try to hide a light rail behind the door, let the door hang down. This will not work with that. So make note to yourself, if you set your hinge to 3-inch position, the hinge placement on the door, and you choose a negative reveal of 32 millimeters, your hinge plate is going to hit the bottom of the cabinet. So you want to use the 3 3/4. That should just be your standard. Then your side reveal and the reveal between. Now we're not giving you all the reveals for every cabinet here, and we may as time goes on, but right now all we're giving you is the ability to change the side and the reveal between. If you want to change every reveal, you'll have to do it per cabinet for the time being. We suggest the 1.5 at left and right and the 3 millimeter between, so that you have 3 millimeter everywhere. When two cabinets come together, it's 1.5, 1.5 becomes 3. And then the bottom rail we talked about earlier matches up with this bottom rail height, and we'll show you that when I get to it, and that you can now create this recessed light space. You may or may not want to use that, but we'll talk more about it as we go. And then this one is not answered and this one is not answered, but on the upper back selection, your options are a 3/4 inch back. All of our backs are 3/4 currently. The reason we have them designated as 3/4 is so we can add other material thicknesses. Don't know what those will be yet, but we probably will add other back options. 3/4 inch back, Kmart suspension blocks with machining and with the scribe. So the default cabinet will be machined for the Kmart suspension blocks, and it will have a 10mm scribe behind the back. You can also order the cabinet with a 3/4 inch back with the 10mm scribe, but without the suspension system. I don't recommend it. Again, if you screw that cabinet to a wall and it has a hump in it, you've just racked that cabinet and you will really have a hard time adjusting your doors and drawer fronts. And then the 3/4 inch back without scribe. So there are applications, I wouldn't do it on a wall cabinet myself, but on a base cabinet that is a peninsula cabinet or an island cabinet, I would remove the scribe. So I can just put them back to back and screw them together and I don't have to shim between where that 10mm scribe is. No back, Kmart blocks with machining without scribe. So this is no back for the cabinet. The back is not there and not machined for, but we are machining for the Kmart suspension blocks, and there is no scribe. So you could use this for like a closet application where you're just trying to save the money of the back. That's all you're achieving there, is just saving the money of the back, and you don't think you need the squaring ability of the back. So that's an option. And then no back without scribe. There's just applications where this fits. Sometimes you're backing a cabinet up to another cabinet, something like that. But no back, no scribe. And then no back with a 3/4 inch nailers. You might use that in a closet application, but it will have the scribe. Now that doesn't make sense to me to use a no back, 3/4 inch nailers and have a scribe. So the nailers are off the wall 10mm. I wouldn't do that. If I'm going to use nailers, I'm going to put them against the wall. And so here's that option. No back, 3/4 inch nailers without scribe. So that would make sense for a closet type cabinet. And we're going to choose as our default that first one that includes our Kmart suspension blocks and the machining and the 10mm scribe. So this is kind of the same question. So this is for upper cabinets, this is for base cabinets. And for base cabinets, you're basically just saying, do you want the scribe or not? Because there's no suspension system. And I would say yes, 90% of the time. I might set some peninsula or island cabinets to no, but I want most of my cabinets to have the scribe. So if there's a hump in the wall, I have some relief there. And in the case of a base cabinet, there's nothing to really need to be scribed. The back is just off 10mm. On a wall cabinet, you do have the top and bottom that need to be scribed if you have a hump in the wall, or vertical hump running up and down. So that's all of these presets. So let's save and use our presets. All right, now we're at the item selection page, aka the catalog. This is our catalog here. And so let's walk down through this list. Now this item here, accessorial, I think is how you say that, will probably become either miscellaneous items or miscellaneous components. We're kind of batting those names around. If you have a suggestion, feel free to share that. But we didn't want to have accessories because we already have a group for face frame, this group right here, called accessories. So we didn't want a duplicate of accessories. It had to have some other name. So this was the first knee-jerk reaction, was accessorial, but we'll probably change that to miscellaneous items or components. And so in this group we have a toe kick, and we'll talk more about the toe kick when we get to that point. Then we have this back panel, which would be the back of an island or peninsula. It's just a slab. Then we have a filler, and we think that you would want to order these in wider, not individual fillers for a cabinet. You can order down to a certain size, but you can't order just like individual fillers per se. You want to order links that you'll cut to size in the field. And then we have an applied in right and applied in left, and these are not specific to, there are defaults in there in sizes, but they're not specific to a base, wall, or upper or tall. You set that once you get it, and we may change that later and even add the applied ins to the different groups. We'll see how that works out. So that's the accessories. And then upper cabinets, right now, upper and base cabinets have this secondary group for corners inside of them. We intend to take that out and make it so when you're here, you'll see upper corners just under upper and base corners just under there. And as we add more cabinets, we'll probably maybe separate out the sink cabinets, cooktop cabinets, things like that into these categories so you can jump into a group. So in the future, this will say upper, and then right below it will say upper corner, and then base corner. But we do see here our upper cabinets, upper door over door, just a typical upper cabinet. These are not in the order we want them to be yet. We'll do that as we go. And then here we've got a pair of doors over, or doors, because it could be a pair, it could be a single, over a drawer, and doors over a door over two drawers. And then in our corner cabinet group, we have a pretty good selection. We've got our blind corner right, and our blind corner right with a door over door. And then we've got our pie cut Susan, and then our repeat of the blinds in the left version, and then a diagonal corner, and then a diagonal corner door over door. And again, we'll be adding more and more to these lists. In our base cabinet group, we've got, and again, it's not the ideal order yet, this full height door. This is a base sink apron front. So this sink is very similar to the one you currently have in the full access library, with the exception that this apron is kind of built in like it is to our appliance cabinets. So it's grooved in. But this cabinet also has a hole already machined in the top for the plumbing. That'll be nice for you guys. Currently you get a full shelf, and you'll see that if we add one, you'll be able to see how that works. And then the base sink full height. So in this case, this is different than the full height cabinet here. This has a standard rail, what I would call a horizontal rail, and this has a small vertical rail, so that entire opening in the top is available for the sink. And then single height drawer, ideal for like window seats and things like that. And then we've got our base 4-door stack, and then a base drawer with pair doors. This will probably be in the sort order. This will probably be the first cabinet when we get these sorted like we want. And then 3-drawer and 4-drawer will probably be 3-drawer first, then 4-drawer, but they're just out of the order we want right now. And then your typical base sink cabinet, so false front over pair doors, and then we have a knee space drawer. And then in our base corner cabinets, similar to the upper corner cabinets, we've got our blind solutions left and right. In this case, this one does not have a drawer at the top, so it's just like a full height door, as is this one. And then we have our pie cut corner, our diagonal corner, and then the 2 blinds with a drawer at the top. And then in the tall group, we do need to talk about just for a second that some of these are intended to be stacked and some of them are not. So let's scroll to the top of this list and we'll look at, like, this could be if you wanted to, but this is a pantry 3-door. So it's actually got 2 fixed shelves in it. Pair door, pair door, pair door, or it could be a single door, single door, single door. But this could be full height, or it could be short and have another cabinet stacked on top of it if you needed that. But it's intended to be full height, as is the 2-door, as is the 4-door. So we've got 3 pairs, 4 pairs, and 2 pairs. And again, that order will be different. It'll start with 2, 3, and 4. This cabinet is called a tall appliance upper. So it's intended to be used over one of these stackable oven type cabinets, or appliance type cabinets, or over your refrigerator. Any of those applications would work, but it's a standard upper cabinet, other than it's set to the tall cabinet depth rather than the wall cabinet depth or upper cabinet depth. All of these cabinets here, whether it's like a microwave over an oven, or an oven over an oven, or a oven over a pair of doors, double ovens over a drawer, oven over 2 drawers, all of those cabinets are intended to be used as a stack cabinet with that appliance upper that we saw here used on top of them, and then you span that with applied ends. The advantage of that is 1-person delivery, 1-person installation, never have a problem standing them up. All of the issues that come with a tall cabinet go away when you stack cabinets, and that's the beauty of full access cabinetry. These cabinets don't have a back wherever there's an appliance. That's cool. You're not having to drill out for wires and gas and all that stuff. There is a back wherever there's a drawer or doors, but wherever there's an appliance, it's open with a nailer. So that's ideal for saving you time at the installation part. And then down here we've got our standard pantry, which would be the most common pantry we intend to be stacked. So there's tall pantry lower, tall pantry upper. We intend for this to be on the floor and this to be on top of it, and then span it with applied ends. So that's all of the cabinets in the current libraries, and we will add additional cabinets as time permits. Alright, so let's add our cabinets for our sample project. So remember, we had this Burns kitchen, and so what I have here are the drawings for that kitchen, and I've got a floor plan view, and then I've got 2 elevation views of each wall. So there's wall 1, looking at it in an elevation view with the doors turned off, and what I can see here are the cabinet heights and depths. You see the depth has got a D in front of it, and then the width of the cabinet. So I've got my dimensions for each cabinet here, and then I can kind of double check myself with secondary elevation with the dimensions set to door sizes. So I actually see my top drawer is 157 millimeters and my door below it is 605 millimeters. So I can kind of double check myself as I'm adding these cabinets by having both of those views. I prefer that. You could also just have your design software open while you're doing this. I mean, you could, whatever way you want to. I might choose to draw a circle around that number as I add each cabinet. I'm not going to do it in the video just for the sake of time, but if I were actually doing this to make sure I didn't order a cabinet twice, I'd probably use the circle feature to draw like a red circle around each number as I added the cabinets. But again, I'm not going to do it in this video. So we're going to start with this cabinet number 2, and so we need a base cabinet. So we'll come to the base group, and we're looking for a drawer over doors. So we'll scroll down to that, and again, that will probably be at the top of the list in the future. And so here's our cabinet, and we have all of our defaults based off of what we said earlier. And so we know that we want this cabinet width to be 643 millimeters. So you've got several options here. We have a slider it allows you to slide, but that slider would be very difficult to get to 643 millimeters. But it's really easy just to type in the field and type the number in, so 643, and then you can use the tab to move between these. So right now you see I've typed a number in. If I tab once, it moves me to this little icon here. This icon allows me to restore the slider if I want. So you can use the slider if you want, or you can type in, and then you could just use your mouse and come down here and click in this and type whatever you wanted in here. But I recommend using the tab key and going to every single field and looking at it and make sure it's right and it's what you want. You don't want to make mistakes here. So we've got 643, we tabbed past that. You see it went right past this field here. So this field is a calculating field. It's not something you can enter into. And it is the calculation of, you're going to tell us what your cabinet height is, and that we're going to change the name of this from cabinet height to cabinet side height. And this will probably be changed from total height to total cabinet height. But here we're saying this is what the side of the cabinet is. And so this number and this number, the toe kick height combined, equals this number. So that's why we have this calculating field, so you don't mistakenly order a cabinet that doesn't include your toe kick height or something like that. So we've got the cabinet side height, and then we can tab, so it's good, and I can tab past that, and my toe kick height is also good from my drawings, I know that, so I can tab past that. And then the cabinet depth in this case happens to be 705.5, so we're doing a little funky stuff there. Now I've tabbed to it, but I haven't entered it. So if I want to just use the keyboard, I'm going to hit enter. So now I can actually type, and then I can tab to the next one. So if I want to just use the keyboard, I do need to enter when I get to the field I want to change something about. So toe kick depth is good. I do want 76 millimeters there. And then top drawer front height, we confirmed when we looked at this second page here that the top drawer front height was 157. You can see it right there. So we're going to leave that at 157. Just tab on. And then our adjustable shelf quantity, we can see in our drawing that there is a single shelf, so one shelf is good, but if we wanted more, we could do that there. And then our adjustable shelf quantity. I know in this job that the adjustable shelf quantity is 5, so we're good there, but you know what the options are from what we talked about earlier. Our door swing. Door swing, your options are both, none. So none turns the hinges off and the doors off. You see now our doors are just kind of these opaque green colors, basically saying we don't supply doors ourselves, but we are calculating the sizes for you. So none would not put that door on the list. And then it could be hinged left, it could be hinged right, or it can be both. And in this case, the cabinet's wide enough to need both, and we see in our drawing that it's both. So we can go past that. Construction method, we talked about those earlier. I'm going to take the default. I like that. We talked about the drawers. I do want to use a dovetail drawer, and I do want an undermount slide. I'm going to use that less expensive 5/8 finger joint material. Middle stretcher, we do need to talk about this. So middle stretcher is this stretcher right here. And so this is saying, do you want one or not? If we say no, stretcher goes away, and you literally can see it go away. When I put yes, you'll see it come back. And there's the stretcher back. And then we have this middle stretcher position, and we have a specific reason for doing what we do. This originated back in the True 32 days. We like for it to be lowered this 8 millimeters or 0.315 inches. And the reason is we want all of the rail to be available for the door bumper pad. We don't want half of it. So if we said centered, and we rotate this, so you can use your mouse to rotate these things. Just literally push down on the primary key and rotate it, and then you can zoom in with your roller wheel on your mouse. So you can see now with it centered, half of the rail is up here behind the drawer front, which is not needed at all. The objective of the rail is to block the space between the reveal. Right now, half of it is behind the door, half of it is behind the drawer front, and if we go back to this centered and say I want it lowered, you see that we get the whole rail, so the bottom of the drawer front flushes with the top of the rail, so the whole thing is there, and it makes positioning your bumper pads a little easier. It doesn't change or hurt anything else, doesn't change the position of your drawer box at all, the drawer guide at all. It just lowers that rail so it's available for the bumper pad to hit on. So that's what that's all about. Then you have your carcass material. What is the inside made out of? And our primary option is the UV maple, or our default option. We also have UV natural birch. We have these 3 melamines, and then all of these raw materials available that we talked about earlier. Then your edge band, again, it defaulted to the one we chose, but you have 50 colors here, and for the time being, that's all that's available. We'll probably in the future find some way for you to provide the edge banding, but right now it's just what we're offering. Then the hinge placement, we talked about that. I'm going to leave it at that default position, but I'm going to move it just so you can see. If I move it to 3, you'll watch those hinges move, and the hinge plate machining moves. So that's your position. Then the reveals. So this reveal between just means anything like here and here. If there's 3 drawers between every drawer and door, everything that's between something would be 3 millimeters. And your options are you can go as low as 2 and as high as 6. And if you have a hard time getting it back to where you want it, just type it in if you want to. Our top reveal on all cabinets, base, upper, and tall, is 3 millimeters by default. You can change it if you need to or want to. And there are times that we'll change that top reveal. In this job, we'll change the top reveal for all the uppers to account for a freeze mold. And we'll talk about that a little when we get there. And then the bottom reveal, on a base cabinet, the minimum is 0, but you can go all the way up to 6 millimeters. And we do a 0 reveal because we like to stack cabinets. So with a 0 reveal, you don't see the horizontal crack between the 2 cabinets. The door aligns with that joint. And then left and right, 1.5 millimeters. And your options there are 1 millimeter minimum and 3 millimeter max. Then we have the edge banding for the adjustable shelves, and here we've said match front. We talked about that, and that's what we want it to be for this job. And then edge band top and bottom of sides. In the case of a base cabinet, the default is no, but you can set it to yes if you want it. I'm going to just leave it no, and we'll probably make that one of those presets so you can set it for the whole job rather than having to do it one cabinet at a time. But I do like to edge band all of my cabinet sides. It just looks better on the site. Plus, the base cabinets become the bench for everything, including soft drinks, and getting moisture down into the core of plywood or particle board material is not ideal. So I like to edge band that. It just looks good until the countertops go on. We never put cabinets in and the countertops go on the same day. There's always days or weeks between the time the countertop goes on. It just looks good if those parts are edge banded. Then base and tall back options. In this case, we have the option of the 3/4 inch back, no back with 3/4 inch nailers, or no back that we talked about earlier. We're going to keep the 3/4 back. And scribe, we want it, and then the leg levelers, we want them. But we can see here, if we rotate this cabinet and we said we don't want, or we want integral toe, you see, there's the toe kick, the integral toe. And we can do that on one cabinet or all the cabinets. We want to do it at that preset area if we're going to do it for all of them. We can say no legs, no machining, and everything goes away. But in this case, we want the Kmart legs, and we want to machine for the legs. So that's a cabinet. And now you can see here that we have the price, and it's been calculating as we have gone. I've intentionally not talked about it, but you can see that it's calculated the cost of this cabinet as we've currently configured it. And just to show you how that's working, probably one of the easier things to kind of see the variations in that would be say, hey, what would it be if we used the UV natural birch? So it's $200.85, and now it becomes $184.30. Or if we go to, let's say, a white melamine, $164.25. Now, this is our new list price. We're going to work with a new list price with discount rather than having markups kind of thing. So this is the list price. When we get to the cart, you'll see your price, what it would cost you. So if you had a customer sitting there watching you go through this, which I don't recommend, but if you did, the price would be kind of their price rather than your price for what it is. It's a meaningless number to them anyway, and I just can't imagine anybody sitting there with their customers. And so this is cabinet number 2. This customer reference field is for that very purpose. So I'm going to say wall 1 cab 2, so that and this will be on your label when you get your part. So every part in this job will have whatever you type here on there. So obviously we've got a very long field here, and you can't be anything because the label's kind of small, but try to keep it as compact as possible, but put things that are meaningful to you. In this case, I think that's all I need to know. This cabinet goes on wall 1, and it's cabinet number 2, and I'm ready to add that to the project. All right, so that brings us to this project review page, and on this project review page, we can do one of two things. If we're done, we can add this to the cart. If we're not done, we can add another item. And this probably will say add another custom item, but I think it's sufficient that it says add custom item, but another would be even clearer. So we're going to click on that. I'm just going to add a couple more cabinets that I talk about, and then I'm just going to add them as quickly as I can, and I'll speed up the video through that portion so you're not just watching me add cabinets, because I do want to add this whole job and for you to see that whole project. So we've got a couple more cabinets that need just a couple things mentioned. So we're going to add the next cabinet, which is this 3-drawer stack, and the only reason I want to add that one and talk about it is just simply that we do want to be able to see those drawers, those calculated drawers. So let's click on our 3-drawer cabinet. And in this case, we're going to accept almost every default that's already here. We're not going to change anything really that I can think of right now, other than the things that have to be answered that aren't answered in the defaults, like the sizes and things like that. So this particular cabinet, we can see here in this, actually we need to look at this other drawing for the width. We see that this cabinet is 612 wide, and now I can just pretty much use my keyboard. So 612, tab, the 768 is right, the 110 is right, but the depth is not right. Again, we want this 705.5 like we did on that first cabinet. We have 3 odd depths on this particular wall. I'm in the field for depth, but I haven't selected it. I've got to hit enter and then 705.5 to enter something. And then my toe kick depth is fine. And my top drawer front. So I can confirm, you can see here that we have a top drawer front of 157, a second drawer front height of 285, and a third drawer front height of 317, and this is calculated. We can't type here. We change either of these, this one continues to recalculate. But if we look at our elevation for this wall, we can see that the top drawer is 157, the second drawer is 285, and the bottom drawer is 317. So this 157 plus 3 is 160 millimeters, which is a divisible of 32. 285 plus 3 is 288, which is a divisible of 32. 317 plus 3 is 320, which is a divisible of 32. So that's our objective, is that the cabinet height be a divisible of 32 and the door and drawer fronts be a divisible of 32 after you've added back your respective reveal. So we've done that. That's all right. Our construction method is right. I can click in here. If I want to start tabbing again, just going to need to get into one of the fields. Our dovetail drawer is right. The stretcher, we do want it, and we do want it lowered. We don't want a lower stretcher. That's an option. The default is there is no stretcher there. If we say yes, then there will be. A little hard to see, but it's there. I personally don't think it's useful or helpful. It just adds cost and time and labor and material, and it's not needed. But you can have it if you want. And then we're going to go to carcass material UV maple. We're going to leave that. Our dove gray is correct. Our reveal between is correct. Our top reveal is correct. Our bottom reveal is correct, and left and right reveal is correct. Edge band top and bottom, we're going to go ahead and let it be no, so we're not having to answer all those questions. So all of that is correct, and we're ready to just say this is wall 1, cab 3. And then we can even tab to the add to project and then just hit enter. So once you get rolling, you can move pretty quickly. And then I'm going to add another custom item because I do want to talk about this cabinet, just a couple of the specialty cabinets, and then again I'll rush through the rest of it. So I'm going to come down here to the corner cabinets. We've got you can see here a blind corner cabinet, so we want to come down here to our base corner. Be a little quicker when we don't have to go inside a group to get to it. And we're looking for the blind right with a drawer at the top. So this is the blind cabinet, and it does have a drawer at the top, so that's the cabinet we want. I'm going to go back to this drawing because I need to see that width. And that width is 1271 for the cabinet width. And our cabinet height is correct, 768. Our toe kick height is correct. Our cabinet depth is 570, so I have to hit enter to select it and then choose 570 and enter again. And then tab. Toe kick depth is correct. Top drawer front height is correct. This blind panel is not correct. So depending on how you choose to do it. So let me slide this view over just a little bit so you can see. In this particular job, we chose to hold the cabinet off the wall 76 millimeters. And it's not showing here, but in some of the elevations it does show. But we intentionally held it off of the cabinet, or off the wall 76 millimeters, so that this panel would be a size that we wanted it to be. But right now, our default size is basically saying it's touching the wall. So however much you subtract it or move it away from the wall is how much you want to take off of here. If you're wanting 76 millimeters of filler showing right here, where the other cabinet butts into it. We want 76 millimeters on either side of that corner so that the drawers on one wall don't hit the drawers or pulls on the other wall. Sometimes you might even have to make it 4, but our default is 3. So in this case, I want that part to be 627 millimeters. And you can see it move when I did that. Then we have the raw integral material parts that we talked about earlier. That is this blind panel. And so it is raw maple, so it can be painted that gray. Then we have our adjustable shelf quantity. 1 is good. And our shelf clusters are fine. This is not correct on the doors. You see that we're hinged right only, but in our drawing it's a pair, so we want to have both. Then our construction method is good. Our drawer is good. Our stretcher position is good. In this cabinet, you notice that we're missing the mid-stretcher yes or no option. We need this mid-stretcher to be able to place this partition right here. If we kind of flip this around, you can see this is just like a little short partition. So we need that partition, which also precludes us from allowing you to delete the back, because we need to be able to have something to screw into that at the back too. We don't want it to just be suspended from that rail. We need some structure there. So we don't let you delete the back in this cabinet. And we don't let you remove this mid rail because it's how we're attaching this partition right here. And so that's why you don't have the mid rail here. And then we have our carcass material. I'm going to just choose that so I can start tabbing again. And then our edge band is correct. Our hinge placement is correct. All of our reveals are correct. Back scribe is correct, the back, and all of these things are correct. So now I'm going to say this is wall 1, cab 4, and tab and enter. And then we have one more cabinet I want to talk about, at least one wall cabinet, so that we kind of see the difference in the options, and that will be this cabinet number 7. So we're going to say add a custom item, and we're going to go to the upper group. And here, to get to that, we've got to come down here to this corner, the upper corner group. We're just looking for our diagonal corner cabinet. There it is. Add that. All right, you can see I'm going to rotate around this cabinet. You can see exactly what we have here. This is a very easy cabinet to build compared to most diagonal corner cabinets. You can see this back piece we call our diagonal corner support, just a typical back with 3 rabbeted sides and one that's not, that just you screw right into that diagonal corner support. This cabinet just snaps and slides together really, really easy. But this is going to be a good opportunity to also show you this bottom recess. So let's go ahead and start entering our stuff. So we do see that this cabinet is 610, so we can accept that. But the height is 1088. So I need to hit enter. And we can see that our depth is 330. So on these diagonal corner cabinets, you're basically here, you're saying what are both back widths. So, you know, each of these back wall lengths are 610. If we flip this up like this 610 is from here to the corner and from here to the corner. And then the 330 is from here, so it matches the other wall cabinets. So here's our bottom recess. So you see this cabinet just has a regular bottom in it. If we say we do want the bottom recess, and let's say in this case with a rail, you see that it now has this rail showing, and this rail would be currently out of raw maple, but we could say we wanted it out of whatever we want. We want it to be cherry or white melamine or whatever we want it to be, we can. Right now the door is just coming down flush to the bottom, equivalent to the thickness of the bottom, but there's some of this 32 millimeter rail is showing. You would actually see it if you left it like this. And that's fine. You could do that if you wanted to. We typically cover that, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So right now we're saying that that bottom recess is 32. Just so you can see how this works, we can say we want it to be whatever we want it to be, up to 304 or 12 inches. We could also say we don't want the rail. Now for this particular cabinet that wouldn't make any sense at all, but some of these upper cabinets could be very easily used in a closet by doing exactly that. So that's why we give you that ability. So we're going to say with the rail, and we just want a 32 millimeter rail. So we'll talk about when we get to the bottom reveal how we can cover that up with the door itself. Integral parts is raw maple is fine. Now we see that our cabinet has 3 shelves in it, but our default is only 2. So I either can hit enter and then hit 3, or I could have used the slider and slid it to get the 3. I like using the keyboard anytime I can. We're going to go ahead and accept our cluster of 5 holes. This cabinet, from this perspective, we can't tell which way the door is hinged unless you understand what that means, and that does mean that the door is hinged on the left. And so that is what we have right now, is our door is hinged on the left. And we're going to accept our standard construction method, our standard material, edge band, hinge placement. There is no between on this cabinet, so it becomes irrelevant, but if you had a pair of doors on it, it would be relevant. In this case, we need to change this top reveal from 3, so I got to hit enter, and I need that reveal. I want a 64 millimeter freeze on the top of that cabinet. So if I say 67 here, that gives me room for 64 millimeter freeze and 3 millimeter reveal. And if we rotate this cabinet just a little bit, you can see now with our little green opaque door is now down 67 millimeters, and if we added a freeze in there on top of 64 millimeters, we would still have our 3 millimeter reveal between the door and the bottom of the freeze, and that gives us somewhere to land our crown without having a face frame. It's similar to a face frame, and freeze can span cabinets. It couldn't this one obviously, but all the other cabinets, all wall cabinets, it can just span multiple cabinets. Just be nailed right on the front, you can nail it right into the top, and your crown mold will cover where you nailed it into the top. So it's an ideal situation when your cabinets are going to the ceiling, or if you just need to use face mount crown with a full access cabinet. I prefer top mount crown when I can use it if I'm not going to the ceiling, because it's faster and easier. But if I have to use a face mount crown, I can't get a crown of the detail they want, and I have to use face mount crown, I'm going to put a freeze on so I have something for that crown to land on. I don't have to build something on top of the box. And so we'll accept this reveal in the top reveal at 67. And now what we want on this bottom reveal is for that to be a negative 32, which is your minimum or your maximum in the negative. It's your minimum in the negative direction. So instead of 0, we actually let you go negative 32. And so you can see right here, if I zoom in a little, why you can't use that 3-inch hinge position. You see how close that plate is to the bottom, and it's closer than 3/4 of an inch. So if you use the 3-inch hinge placement, it would hit the bottom. And you can't make this bigger than 32. Some people find that out the hard way. We're not letting you in this. In KCD you can. You make it bigger than 32, well then your hinge doesn't work. And we don't really want to, you can make it work, and some companies like Conestoga allow you to literally say, hey, I want this hinge to be at 102, but I want that one to be at 3. That just raises huge opportunities for mistakes. I don't want to have to distinguish between the top and bottom of the door. I want the door board equidistance. If it's 3 inches, it's 3 inches. If it's 4 inches, it's 4 inches. If it's 3 3/4 or 94.5 millimeters, it's 94.5 millimeters. Equidistance. There is no having to determine which is the top and which is the bottom, which opens up a can of worms of mistakes. So that's why we do it that way. But you can set it to any of those dimensions that we have as an option. So that's everything for this cabinet. Now we don't have as many options here, kind of like we did in the blind corner cabinet. You only can have the 3/4 back with the blocks and the scribe, or a 3/4 back with scribe. You can't get rid of the back and a diagonal because we need the back to support the diagonal corner support. So that particular cabinet can't have the back deleted, but all the others have the option of no backs and with nailers and all that stuff. So now we would come down here and say this is also wall 1. I mean, this particular cabinet shows on wall 1 and 2, and it is cab 7. And I'm going to tab and enter. Alright, my intention for this next portion is to just go through this and not really speak to anything other than very specific items, and then I will actually speed up the video to shorten the time frame so that you can see how the process goes, but I don't want you to just sit here and watch me add cabinet after cabinet after cabinet at the full time frame. So that's how we're going to do this, and I'm just going to start doing that, and I will slow it down if I actually stop and talk about what I'm doing. So our next cabinet is the sink cabinet, and I'm just going to carry on through grabbing a cabinet and adding it and then working around the other walls. Alright, on this cabinet, the thing that is unique about it is this base sink rail, we call it. So this part right here, by being turned vertical and the false front being attached to it, allows the full sink space for the sink. Nothing that plumbers or somebody could kick out or break out. It's all available and not requiring you to cut something out and not allowing someone else to beat or break something out. But we also have, you see here in our integral parts, we can have some of those integral parts. This piece would be raw maple. Now you can set it, only 3 millimeters of it shows here, and then about 20 millimeters of it sticks down below, or 3/4 of an inch below, for the doors to land on. For most color jobs, it would be fine for that to be whatever your interior is. So some people would choose to not have this out of something they had to finish. They would use their UV maple interior or use their white melamine, whatever they were using interior. It's possible if you want to. The option is there. But we also have this option for tip-out trays. If you say yes, that full height base sink rail goes to two 52 millimeter rails, 2-inch rails, that allows you to put your tip-out trays in this space in between. So that's a pretty handy little feature to that. That's all I've got about this cabinet, I think, that I need to speak to. I do want to say here that the door swing is set to right, and we can see in our drawings over here that it's pair. So while I'm here, I don't have to pull that down. I can just use my keyboard and put B for both, and you see it change to both. If I put L for left, it goes left. If I put R for right, it goes to right, and B for both. So. Right here, I want to speak to the fact that I am now organized. Yes, this is what I'm going to do, and that makes sense. That you basically have to do that. I mean, this also you really do so to make sure that this is going to do that. But if you don't have these caddies or electric doors down, then we're going to do it. So you have this build item, and since we're going to cover it, you choose that. Then you use your and that's the and second time you have to get the in-house belt or against the device. We need to so you have to choose this for the house. I know, and it's like everybody else has to do. Just check. I mean, on this cabinet right now. Alright, on this cabinet over the microwave, I do want to do a couple things. So we'll talk through this one. So it's 765 wide. And I haven't shown you this yet, so I intentionally tabbed past where I wanted to be into the slider. I'm actually in that field. If I want to back up, I can hit Shift Tab and back up one field. And now we're in that field, and this cabinet is 704 millimeters tall, 330 deep still. It is not going to have a recessed bottom, so we don't have any of those raw parts. It already has 2 shelves, so we're good, but it probably could have been just as well with 1 in that height and that position, but it has 2 in the drawing, so we're going to do that. Keep our clusters of 5. It is a pair of doors. We're going to use our regular construction method, And our regular material, our default material, edge band, hinge position's good, reveal top, shift tab, I went past it by accident, so I want to hit enter. The reveal between is 3, the top reveal is 67, the bottom reveal is 0 on this cabinet normally, but because there's a microwave there, I actually want that bottom reveal to be 3. So that door, when I click out of there, we actually have a 3mm reveal, so that door will be out of system. And that's fine with me. It's not out of system in the sense that what we say, the way we say that rule, the 10 True 32 commandments, if you ever want to look those up. But in True 32 Flow Manufacturing, we talk about the 10 commandments of 32mm systems, or the True 32 system, and that the doors are an increment of 32 after you add back the reveal. Well, in this case, there's 2 reveals. So, and we've intentionally made the light reel an increment of 32 so that this door is still an increment of 32 if we add back 3 and 3, or if we added back 3 and 64. So we're intentionally keeping these doors in system in that sense, but this door will not be a common number. But that red flag that it'll throw up and say, hey, that's not one of those numbers I've memorized in the incremental system. But when we go look at the cabinet, oh, I see why. I don't want that door to drag on that microwave, because those microwaves are always deeper than the cabinet. And if we had a 0 reveal at the bottom, when you went to open the door and the microwave was deeper, it would actually drag on the top of the microwave. So that's why we add that. And in the KCD library, we actually have that cabinet specifically named, and we already have that reveal set to 3. But here we don't. It's just a regular upper cabinet we're converted. So I just wanted to mention that, and also mention how you back up with the tab, and intentionally made a few mistakes so I could back up and show you how to do that. So now we've got this cabinet right. We've got our top reveal for the freeze, and we've got our bottom reveal, and we've got it the right width, depth, and all that stuff. All right, we're back to, I need to talk through the next couple cabinets because they're different than what we've been doing. We're not just repeating the same cabinets over and over again. So we're looking for this tall appliance upper, and we haven't made this one of your global standards yet, so it's probably going to be 608, and we want 635, but ultimately we'll give you that ability. But it's already similar anyway. It's already deep anyway, so we're going to grab this cabinet, set the width to 914. We're going to set the height to 608. We're going to set the depth to 635. You can see that here. So we've set the depth right there to 635 so that this end panel is going to be 655. We can't see it for that 6mm. Those 2 end panels are 655 to receive the countertop on the 608 deep cabinet. So the countertop's not sticking out past that applied end. So that's why we do that. You don't have to do it. I've made a lot of kitchens where the tall cabinets were still 608 too, and they just usually round the countertop a little bit. But it does look better if the countertop is received by the end panel and rather than being proud of it. So that's that. This one is one that we probably would do this bottom with rail, and we would say we want it to be 32, and then I would say that I want that to be out of UV material because I'm making the cabinet out of UV material, and I'm just using that to bolster the bottom of that cabinet because it's pretty wide and I don't want it to sag. And I also typically never put a shelf in this cabinet, but you could if you wanted to. So that's a good reason to use this, is to strengthen the bottom of a really wide cabinet. We're not going to use any adjustable shelves. We kind of consider that pan storage or big storage, but you could, and they do sometimes sag if you do that. But totally up to you. We got no shelves, so we won't have any shelf holes, or in this case, we're leaving the shelf holes in case they want to add a shelf. But you could set it to none if you wanted to. And both doors swing in both ways. Standard construction method, and interior material and edge band. Hinge placement's good, reveal between is good, reveal top, enter, 67. Reveal bottom, enter, minus 32. And that covered that integral light rail we added. And match, and if the adjustable shelf was there, it would be matching. And we are going to edge band the tops and bottoms of that because it's an upper cabinet. And we are using the suspension block on the back. This is cabinet number 41. Alright, so that's this cabinet, the pair of doors, and we actually included this recess at the bottom intentionally to give us strength for the bottom of that bottom cabinet. Totally up to you whether you do it or not, but it's the option is there if you want it. And you can see what it does here. We actually have this recessed bottom, and so that rail being built in. And if you look at the details on the cabinotch.com, .net, any of those other extensions, the sales website we call it, for the oven cabinet, you will see that this bottom of this cabinet actually has a rabbet cut in it so that it has a tongue on the front, and then this rail we send you will have a groove cut in the back of it, and it'll engage it. And so all you got to do is glue it, and you don't even have to pin nail it if you just clamp it a little bit and let it dry. But it's a very effective way to deal with strengthening the cabinet or creating the recess for under-counter lighting, and then you can also use it for other reasons as well. Again, you can make it big if you want to and all that stuff. So that's that cabinet, and then let's go look at this tall cabinet again. We're stacking. You can actually see there that we stacked it. So we're going to add this one to the project, and then we're going to add another. So we're going to tall. We're going to first add our tall upper. So we're looking for the pantry's at the very bottom right now. Again, I don't know where this sort order is going to land, but this is that upper portion of that. So we'll grab that. That would be cabinet number 43. And we're going to make that cabinet 256 millimeters wide. And currently that cabinet's 1,088 millimeters, which makes that door different than the others. Totally up to you. If you wanted to match that up, you'd probably want to make that cabinet 32 millimeters taller and the one below it 32 millimeters shorter, so that door is the same height as the others. In this particular application, that was fine. It's what we did, and it worked out fine. So now we want the depth to be 635. We do not want to recess the bottom. We do want 3 adjustable shelves, and we want that not to be hinged both, but to be hinged on the right. So I'm just using the R and tabbing out of there, and it hinged it right. I didn't have to click in it and choose it. Same construction method, same material, edge band, hinge position, reveal between this 3, reveal at the top is 67, reveal at the bottom is -32. Left and right is fine, edge band match is fine, top and bottom, yes, and we've got our suspension system. And this is wall 3, cabinet number 43. And we're adding that to the project. And then one last cabinet before we do our accessories. So add one more cabinet. And it's tall. And it's the bottom pantry, which is at the very end of the list currently. And this cabinet is also 256 wide. And we can see right here that it is 1390, so our default height was correct. 1280 plus 110 is 1390. But we do want it to be 635 deep. Toe kick depth is fine. Adjustable shelves, looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we've got 3, so we want to change that to 4. And we're going to use the cluster of 5. This is hinged right instead of both. Construction method is fine. Interior material is fine. The edge band is fine. Hinge placement is fine. Reveal between is irrelevant. The top reveal is correct. The bottom reveal is correct. And I think I did mess up that cabinet before, so that's a good example and another reason why we need the edit featured. So on that cabinet number 43, I set that bottom reveal to -32, and it should have been 3 or to 0. So that one's wrong, would have to be deleted. We will give you that option, but that I just realized I did that. I set the bottom reveal for cabinet number 43 to 32, and it should have been 0. Or yeah, it should have been 0. All right, match edge band bottom of sides. No. And tall, and we do want a 3/4 inch back, and we do want a 10 millimeter back scribe, and we do want our leg levelers. And so this is wall 3, cab 30. Add to project. And so just to avoid that mistake I made on that one, you know, after you add each cabinet, it wouldn't hurt to kind of like the double measure, you know, measure twice, cut once. We probably should double check our cabinets as we go too. And it wouldn't hurt to have a second set of eyes going on when you get done to go through this list. Now we do intend, I don't think I've mentioned that yet, we do intend for this list to be a little more detailed later, where instead of just having that this is a base drawer over doors and it's here's your customer reference and here's your price, we intend to also put like the cabinet width, height, and depth over here as well. Not all the details about the cabinet, but to add some additional stuff. It's just going to be time to do that. So now we're ready to add our accessory type things. And in this drawing, depending on how we wanted to go about that, I probably would go back to the beginning and work my way around the room. So I get this base and then that upper. And again, I'm going to speed these up, but I'm going to talk about at least one of each of them so we have an idea of how we would do that. For a lot of guys, like in this case, this kitchen actually was using a textured melamine door and drawer front, so this part was going to get ordered from Conestoga anyway. But we still want to add it so that it gets to Conestoga. So we're going to go ahead and grab, go to custom items, and we're going to go to our group accessorial for now, but again, I think that'll be miscellaneous soon. And what we're looking for is an end panel, which is these bottom two, and we want initially a left one. So grab a left end panel. We're going to band all the edges of these parts so it won't really matter. I think that's the case. You probably should use left where you want left and right where you want to use right for the time being, but I think we'll band all 4 edges of these just to be safe. So this is the default is just made up numbers. It's obviously not even for a necessarily a wall or base cabinet, but what we're doing here, and we do intend to add another field that we don't have right now, and that is the calculation of these two. So we're just asking you for the cabinet depth and how much of a protrusion you have. And in this case, my cabinet depth is an unusual depth in that it's 705.5, and I actually want a front and back protrusion. So I want 20 at the front and 26 at the back. So I want 46 millimeter protrusion. I want it to protrude out the back and protrude out the front so it comes flush to the front of the doors and goes 6 millimeters past that back panel so that I don't have to be perfect. It makes a nice look and works well. You make it anything you want. And then we want the applied in height for this thing to be 878 millimeters if we're going to the floor, or 768 if we're not. 78. And in this case, we did go to the floor with that end panel because the back was going to the floor, and I don't think we even toe notched it. I think we left it that way, and you can actually watch that in the videos. And then what do you want to make it out of? And in this case, we're going to just say the raw maple. We're going to paint this thing dove gray kind of thing, but again, this was probably going to get ordered from Conestoga, and we wouldn't want to add it to the list at all. We would just do that in our door program. So this is for wall 1, and it is unit 1, and add it. And then I'm going to just kind of pop through these others, and you can kind of follow along. I'll speed it up because we don't really need to talk to these, and if I do need to, I'll slow down and say something about them. So this is our cabinet height plus 32, so 1088 plus 32, so 1120. And these we want to run to the bottom of this freeze mold. So it's our 1088 cabinet height minus our 64 millimeter freeze plus our 32 millimeters below. So we have a height of 1056. Alright, and then I want to talk through these two, or at least one of these two. We've got our tall applied ends, 28 and 29. So we're going to go to accessorial. We're going to go down here. This first one is an applied end left. So this wall height being 2495 millimeters, a little unusual wall height. And so that is taller than our 8-foot sheet of plywood or melamine or whatever it is we're ordering from. And that's our limitation to shipping and sheet goods. So we're going to set this thing on the depth to 655 because we know that cabinet is 635, or we actually would set it to 635 because we have our protrusion there built in. So we're set it to 635, and then we have 20 additional millimeters added, and then we want the height in this case to be 2414, and that will take us from the floor to the bottom of the frieze. So it actually works out for us. The sheet is 2440 or 96 inches, and so but if we added a full 64 to it, it would be taller than the sheet. So we're going to make that 2414, and then again we're accepting our raw material to be painted. This is wall 3 unit. And we could, if you wanted to, say that's an applied end rather than just saying unit, but for me, what I'm doing here, that's sufficient. And then we just do it one more time for the other applied end, here, 29, which is basically identical. And you could, at the cart level, change the quantity, but I like to have them detailed out here. This is also a left. Alright, so now we've got all of our cabinets and all of our applied ends. We just need toe kick, filler, and freeze. So, and I'm gonna kind of guess at how we're gonna do this, but I do want to show you a couple things about these things. So this first item up here is toe, and let's just say for guessing sake for the time when I haven't added it up, but let's just say there's 5 pieces needed. So our default width is 108 millimeters. Our toe kick height, if you remember, is 110 millimeters. So we're just making it 2 millimeters shorter, but you can change this to whatever you want it to be. But the default is 108, 2 millimeters shorter than our toe kick height. We have a material here, and here we're saying, do you want to edge band that edge that's going to go against the floor? And you can say yes or no. And then here we're saying, do you want to machine? And of course, it's difficult to see, but I'll show you. We've got, it doesn't zoom in as much as you would like for it to. That's as far as it'll go. So right now we're machining. If you order the toe kick material from us, now depending on what the material the job's made from, you may have to order it from your door company and do these things yourself. But ideally, you would order them and this would be done for you. So we're grooving out a 3 millimeter groove in the back of this toe kick material. If you say I want the Kmart leg sockets and clip. So the leg sockets is this groove and the clip is this top groove. So if you answer it that way, you're going to get both of those. 3 millimeter groove for your clips to clip your toe kick to your leg levelers. And then this is to clear the shoulder on the leg. It's a rabbet all the way down the length. Both of these things can be done in the field with a typical job site table saw. If you order, like if you got a, in this case this job happened to be textured melamine. So we would want to order this material like 5 strips, 108 millimeters by 2440 long or 8 feet long, so that we have enough material to cut it on site. And then once we cut it, we would run a groove on the back for this. And Wayne actually does that. The guy that's in the videos that you watch, he actually does this now. Instead of on the table saw like we showed in the videos, he does it with a router. He's got a router with a gauge set on it, and he does both of these things with the router. So you have that option if you want to route them or saw them or whatever, but we can machine it if it's something you can get from us and finish yourself. If you don't have finishing capabilities, you kind of got to buy it, and then there's some materials that you kind of got to buy. But if you're getting it from us, we can do these for you. And so, and if you can also say I don't want any machining, and you see both of those machining processes go away, and at that point it technically just becomes a filler. But it's not as good as a filler because you can only say here that I want no edge banding or just one long edge. You can't say both long edges, so you probably want to use a filler for fillers. But You can also say I just want this groove up here to miss the shoulder so we don't get hung on the shoulders, or you can also say, hey, I want to get both of those grooves. So there you go. That's your toe kick. Now, currently we don't have a quantity. I'm not sure we need a quantity. I kind of got to see this myself. We're going to see it together. When we get to the cart, I think that's where we can change the quantity, but I would like to be able to do it here and it come into the cart with a quantity so that I don't have to remember to do that later. And we'll see. And I've got that on the bug list right now. It's really more of a feature than a bug, but we'll see how that works out. So here we've got wall. This is not wall specific. We're just going to call this toe kick. And that's it. Alright, and then we're going to need some freeze material. So we'll come to accessorial, and we're going to use the filler for that. Now the filler appears to be vertical, but it can run horizontal just as well. It doesn't really matter which direction you're going to turn it. And in this case, I kind of want it to be wide enough that I can get two pieces of, because it's going to be edge banded on both long edges. I'm going to choose that right here. I want to make it wide enough that I can rip it in half and have a little extra just in case, so I can rip, say I want this 64 millimeters. So I'm going to make this 135 millimeters. That gives me a little breathing room to get two 64 millimeters out of it and the saw curve and some extra space. So 135 millimeters, and material's fine, and I want to edge band two long edges, and so I'm going to get two pieces out of this. And customer reference is this is freeze, and we're ready to order that. And now we want to do our fillers, and again, you know, we don't intend for you to order fillers onesies at a time. This way you can in KCD, but here we intend for you to order it. You know, everything is an 8-foot length period. You can't do anything different than that. But I could order a filler that's 76 millimeter wide to get the two that are this wide, but it really doesn't make sense. Just go ahead and get 108 millimeters, 4 1/4 inch wide things, 2440 millimeters long, and go ahead and it doesn't say that, so I guess that's something we've missed here somehow, that we're not telling you how long this is, but it is the full length of the sheet, whatever that is, 2440. And we do want to edge band both long edges of it, and we're just going to call this filler, and we're going to get, you know, however many we need, 2 or 3 pieces. In this case, we don't have a quantity yet. We will probably add that, but I think you can do it at the cart level. So we have added everything that we need for this job, and it's ready to cart. All right, so now it's been added to the cart, and so let's kind of walk through here. We've got 28 cabinets, or 28 items, at $4,129. And you can come in here and add additional references and notes yourself, and you could remove this or you can save this. For all of you that are current CabAccess customers, you're in the same cart you've always been in, so nothing's changed here. But here we see our custom drawer boxes. We've got 9 drawer boxes at $338.98. We've got our drawer guides, and so if you decide that you don't want to buy the drawer guides from us for some reason, you can remove them, or maybe you stock them and buy them in bulk, and instead of getting them per job. It's really nice to get them per job. So there's 16 of these, even though the quantity is 1, we've packaged them together. Same thing, you know, there's one thing at $338, but that is 9 drawers. When we get here, you see we actually have put the hinges in. You get 37 hinges, 41 hinge plates, so something is not right there, so we'll have to talk about that. But we're carting these things up for you, and we'll have to check to see why those two don't match. I'm not sure, but this is the beta test that we're in right now. And then we've got 38 legs and 38 leg sockets, and there's the reason that the hinges are different, because some of these hinges are the standard hinges. We've got more plates than hinges, but then we have additional hinges that will use the same plate. 8 of those. No, that's not it. Something else. Oh, here it is. Okay, so that is the blind hinge, I believe. Looks like it. And then the plate for that. And then we've got our diagonal hinges. That's the weird one. So one of these hinges, the diagonal hinge, is using a regular plate. This one, the blind hinge, has a hinge in its own plate. And then we have the Bloom diagonal corner hinge. There's 4 of those, so that's why there's a different amount up top. Then we have our suspension blocks, and again, you can remove anything you don't want from the list right here. But this also, we'll see here in a second, that we have the ability to change these quantities here. So that's our suspension block left, suspension block right, suspension block cover left. We don't have an image in here yet, but we'll get those. Okay, so we cannot change those accessory parts are part of this listing here, these 28 parts. So we will have to add a quantity at the order level rather than here. You can't change it here. So that answers that. So that is this project carded. So we have a total cart cost of $5,083.48, and you can continue shopping or check out whatever you want to do. Again, this all works like your normal carding system, but what's new here that you haven't ever seen is that we're doing the legs and the hinges and the hinge plates. You've always had the cabinets, the drawer boxes, and the drawer guides, but in the past, or even with KCD to this very day, you won't get hinges and you won't get hinge plates, and you won't get legs and you won't get sockets. Now you still would have to come in here, and I guess we probably should do that. What we're missing right this minute for somebody that's going with a system is we don't have any hanging rail, suspension rail, or leg leveler clips. So we could say continue shopping right here, and then we can come in here and say for this job you can either get a whole tube of rail here. This is the bulk where we see a bunch of rails, or this is the individual. So we could say we need 3 pieces of rail, maybe 4. Add to cart and continue shopping. Apparently we have to go to the cart to change the quantity. And accessories. And I want this clips. And then I can go view my cart. So here's my hanging rail that I added, and I'm going to make that 4 pieces just to be safe. And then here's these, and I'm just going to say that if I have 38 legs, I probably need a dozen, but you know, they're cheap. Just get enough of them. Make sure you get enough of them. And so now we've got leg levelers, leg sockets, and leg clips, and then we have our suspension blocks, suspension block covers, and our suspension block rail. So you just need to remember, we don't have any idea how much rail you're going to need. We don't have any way to gauge that. We don't know how many of these clips you're going to need. You don't need a clip for every leg, obviously. It's not half. You don't have clips on back legs at all, hardly, other than returns. And then you don't put a clip on every leg, you put a clip on some legs. So that's why you just need to kind of guess at how many you need, or even buy them in boxes and just replenish when your box runs out. So that's it. You're ready to check out at that point. I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.